JD Vance, what do you think about him?
Well, he's a really likable candidate. That he's a different candidate than I would have expected in from an electoral perspective. So, he's in the same lane as President Trump. He's definitely a populist. He's got an appeal to the same kind of voter. So it sort of reinforces the populist wing or the populist view of President Trump. But he's 39 years old. He's younger. He's going to appeal to young people. He's also from Ohio. He's going to have some appeal to the Midwest and especially upper Midwest, which is really important in this election. The three swing states really are Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. It looks like President Trump will sweep the southern swing states, basically effectively sweep the South of the country, with the exception of New Mexico. And so, it looks like, with Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania in play, someone from Ohio has a real appeal. The Ohio borders both Michigan and Pennsylvania. And he's got the sort of, he wrote the famous book, the Hillbilly Elegy. So, this is someone who is going to appeal to a certain demographic, but not necessarily a certain type of political demographic.
The famous book, The Hillbilly Elegies. Forgive us, we're none the wiser. What is this book famous for? Hillbilly refers to somebody who's a sort of what we call a country bumpkin, often viewed as not perhaps that worldly wise. It's almost an insult to be called a hillbilly. What's this book about?
Yeah, so he wrote a book. This is after his life experience. He grew up in a very difficult environment, in one of these Rust Belt towns that was abandoned, and that's why he wrote the book with that title. And it was about growing up in very difficult America, and that's very much what the populist appeal of the last decade was all about, was the forgotten man, basically. And so he's got a really interesting life story, and a great story. He was raised by his grandmother, because his father, he didn't have a father, and his mother was an addict, and grew up in one of these really depressing towns whose best days are long behind it. And sort of again a Rust Belt town that probably lost a few factories to China, to offshoring. I mean, the really sort of sad story about the transition to a service economy from a manufacturing economy. He joined the Marines and went to Ohio State and then Yale Law School after the Marines, which is sort of an unusual order in this day and age. So he turned himself into a real success story.
But he's made these inflammatory comments in the past, not least about Donald Trump, calling him Adolf Hitler and people who voted for him an idiot. But also in the immediate aftermath of the shooting at the weekend, he was one of the first out of the blocks to come out and accuse the Democrats, to accuse Biden of being responsible for this, for their inflammatory language, which is not necessarily that helpful, is it?
Well, he's like President Trump in many ways. He says things that people are thinking, and sometimes it doesn't come across as polite. He's had experience in polite society. He went to Yale Law School, which is rather elite. But look, he's a say it like it is person. So that was his view, and he doesn't filter it. And it's not necessarily my view. Or I should say, I would probably have filtered it. I would have probably been more polite about it, even though I might think it. And so, these are the things that happen when I think when one party or the other are completely dependent on demonizing their opponents. And I think that's unhealthy. Now, again, I think a country club Republican of the past would probably have been more polite and just ignored it. And I don't think he's that type. So he is, younger, more aggressive. He's a senator from Ohio now. He only won his Senate seat by 7 points. And I say only 7 points because the governor in his election in 2022 actually won his seat by 27 points. So, he sort of underperformed And because I think he was associated or affiliated with Trump in an election cycle where President Trump didn't do that well. But politics changes quickly, as you all both know. I mean, 2 years ago, I think Trump had a difficult. Trump and his allies had a difficult election, and really things have turned around. I mean, I never would have predicted this 2 years ago. I've given up on predictions.
Presumably, Greg, he unites the party, or he brings at least two differing sides together.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I would agree with that, because again, JD Vance is from the same kind of political lane as Trump. However, he does appeal to the young, and he appeals to some geography that I think is really important in this election. He doesn't bring a state. Ohio is very much a red state, and Trump's going to win Ohio, no problem. But he has that appeal to Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And also, the other difference with this election, or this choice, I should say, is, I think President Trump is so much more confident in winning. So I don't think he depended too much on the nomination or the vice president choice as perhaps he would in a really close race. Now, that might be overconfidence, but also you have both Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley coming to the convention to speak. Now, that's really interesting to me, because I didn't think Nikki Haley would ever come to the convention. Ron DeSantis more likely, but he had his difficulties with President Trump. And when I say difficulties, Trump has a loyalty test, and the fact that Governor DeSantis and Governor Haley both ran in the nomination against Trump really made it difficult for this president. I think he's changed a bit. I think he's gotten over some of his personal grudges, his disagreements. He's much more disciplined in this campaign. He's, especially after Saturday, he's going to be much more prone to try to unify the country, not just the party. The party's unified. I'm here in Milwaukee at the convention. The party is energized and so much more unified than it was even a few months ago. During the nomination process,
Greg. You're not going to Milwaukee?
I am in Milwaukee.
Oh, you are. Forgive me. I was misreading the...
Yeah.
Okay, superb.
Greg,